Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Unity of Las Cruces virtual Sunday service celebration, where God is good all the time and all are welcome, safe, and loved. I'd like to read you a line from a poet called P. Bodhi, B-O-D-I. You may be familiar with her, and some of you may have seen her being quoted in the Science of Mind magazine this morning under today's daily reading. And it read, and I loved it, so I have to share it: to bloom, to flourish, to reach for the sun, this growing, this becoming is never quite done. Isn't that beautiful? Thank you. So whether you're a newcomer or a regular Unity viewer and congregant, please let me know, or please know that we are also on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, obviously, if you're watching on YouTube. And if you'd like to find out what we're up to every week, send us an email at unitylascruces@gmail.com, and we can put you on our list, and you will receive on Fridays at 4:44 a.m. our Unity of Las Cruces newsletter email. And I'd like to, with that information will also be on the last slide that Ken Warner will be putting up at the end of the service, so you can jot that down later too. So I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of gratitude, a grateful moment of gratitude, as I and all of us thank the Unity of Las Cruces Board of Trustees for the things that they're doing for the church and behind the scenes, the social media outreach person and all the folks involved with that who are supporting her, Jane Ray, the prayer chaplaincy with Kate Brilliant and all of the things that she's doing behind the scenes with Virginia. Of course, our speakers, including today's speaker, which is Helen, our ministry coordinator, Helen Wright, the singers and musicians that we have, and today is, again, our wonderful Barry Shaw and Max Contreras, the donors, the helpers, and the volunteers, and of course, all of us who are anonymous prayers, or maybe not so anonymous, but thank you for your prayers, because you know they make a difference, and this brings the energy up and the healing into this world. We're all conduits, we're all channels of the divine, healing, loving energy. I want to thank you so much. Thanks again for joining us today from the comfort of wherever you are, your living room, your office, your patio. We'll be back in the sanctuary at some time. We just don't know when. In the meantime, thank you for showing up. And now I'd like to bring the service over to Ken Warner, who has some interesting good news for us today. Here you go, Ken.
All right. Well, this was kind of self-explanatory, so let's switch over to it. Here we go. So this is another item from the wonderful country of Brazil. Never been there, but it looks like it's very interesting in spite of all the turmoil that's going on down there. But this is kind of interesting. This video popped up on the Good News Network, and I thought it was really interesting. It's very low key. Takes about 30 seconds, and hopefully you guys can hear it when it all comes up and running. All right, so here we go.
Calma e tranquilidade são as ordens do Senhor. Calma e tranquilidade para receber o amor.
Can you read what the slide says, Ken?
Sure. Hang on just a second. Let me share that again. So it's shot in the idyllic countryside of Minas Gerais, Brazil. The footage shows Patricia Varela Favano singing while she relaxes in a barn with a cow known as Master Siddhartha Gautama. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced anything, but it's really kind of interesting, the harmonious things that people do with the animals that they love. All right, back to you.
Thank you, Ken. And now we have the daily word reading with our very own Steve Gaskell, doer of good.
We have a happy Sunday, July the 12th, 2020. Our topic today is guidance. Our biblical reading comes from Psalm 25, verse 4. Make me to know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. And our affirmation today is, I am divinely guided. Guidance can be easy to find in the outer world. Maps and GPS technology can help me navigate my way just about anywhere. Everywhere I go, there are signs marking streets, adorning storefronts, and providing just about every kind of information and opinion imaginable. Spiritual guidance often is not as evident, but it is much more valuable. This guidance can come to me as a persistent tug on my attention, as a gut feeling or intuition, or even in a dream as I sleep. I pay attention to the guidance I receive and step out in faith to move my steps in its direction. I know that the spirit of wisdom and love within me are always guiding me to blessings of greater peace, love, and prosperity. In our affirmation together, I am divinely guided. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, Steve. And next we have an affirmation. Which one is it this week? The intention statement affirmation. If you'd like to join me while I read it, to create a sacred space where all who enter feel the presence of God, the joy of God, where all feel welcome, safe, and loved. Thank you. And of course, we can say that for wherever we are, can't we? Next, I'd like to introduce our speaker. As you know, she is our ministry coordinator, Helen Wright, and she's up today to speak to us on an aspect of freedom. Take it away, Helen Wright. Thank you, Helen.
And thank you. So the title of the talk started off as being Free to be We, Creating a Language of Oneness. And so I thought we'd go way, 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 way back to the beginning. So we are starting in the Garden of Eden, way back. And in Unity, we could certainly do a metaphysical interpretation of those passages in the Garden of Eden. We could do a metaphorical, but I'm going to go literal today. So first of all, in Genesis 2:8-9, God is talking about this beautiful garden that God is creating, and talking about in the middle of the garden, there is this very famous tree, the tree of good and evil. And then later in the verses 15-17, God goes on to say, you know, you can eat, Adam and Eve, you can eat anything in the garden, any of the fruits, everything I've created for you, except don't eat of that tree in the middle of the garden, the tree of good and evil, the tree of knowledge. Don't eat that. And the human condition, I thought, you know, the minute you tell a 2-year-old, don't touch something, or don't think something, the human condition tends to want to do the opposite. So I was just reflecting on, you know, don't eat of the fruit of that tree, makes that tree fill your thoughts, and that's all there is to think about, the tree of that fruit. And God then later goes on to say, you know the story, supposedly Eve gets tempted by the serpent knows better, they eat of the fruit, and suddenly they have the knowledge of good and evil. And what I get from that is it's the birth of duality. We've got two differences, two comparisons, good, evil. And not only that, Adam and Eve are plunged into this shame, this sense of being naked. And I read it as an acute sense of self-consciousness and discomfort in terms of being in their own physical body. God says, you know, who told you you were naked? Because before they had no knowledge that they were naked. And I relate to this, to an acute self-consciousness. Maybe some of us have experienced it way, way, way back, not as far as Genesis, but when we were trying to date for the first time, and that awkwardness of suddenly seeing another, a person that may be desirable. Or I'm seeing it now as an acute self-consciousness the minute we raise into the light the issues of racism. We can have that sort of naked self-consciousness again about what to do, what's right, who are we, you know, what were our beliefs. So I see the Garden of Eden as the birth of duality. So certainly not the language of oneness, and it's certainly not from freedom. And I see it as a message of that separation, me and you, me and it, us and them. I see that duality, good and evil, judgment comes in, light and dark, big and small, white and black. All of those judgments are the language of duality. And then if we can move forwards, a little bit further forwards in history towards the Middle Ages, I'd like to introduce you to one of my heroines. Her name is Saint Julian. She was born in 1342, we know that, and she apparently made her transition in 1416. But what we also know is that she's a very remarkable woman. We don't actually know her name. She may have been born into a better area of society in that she was educated and could write. She's actually the first woman to write a book in English, and that was called Revelations of Divine Love. She had a period of time, she sounds a little bit like many New Thought people, in that she had a period in her life where she was very, very ill, and during that period of illness, she was brought showings or visions from God, and chose to really bring herself to God and bring to her life a commitment to become separate from secular life. She was known as an anchoress. Anchoress is the female form, anchorite is a male form of someone who withdraws from secular society. Sound familiar? It sounds like many of us have had to withdraw from much of society and much of secular society with the COVID-19. So I was curious to know more about Saint Julian. As I say, she was named after the church. She even gave up her own name. And she went to live in a stone-built cell. It maybe had 2 or 3 windows. And she didn't go out. Some reports say that she had a small garden and could go and sit in a very tiny garden. I've looked at the pictures, it must be really, really tiny. And she was allowed her cat. She was allowed 1 cat, and that was practical because the Black Death, the plague, was raging all around. So she was allowed a cat to deal with the rats. So there she is, withdrawing from secular society by herself and devoting her whole life to contemplation, to prayer, and to writings. She could receive food and nourishment through 1 small window. And then there was another small window whereby she could actually talk to and counsel the people that came by. And apparently, at St. Julian churches in Norwich, there were often a lot of sailors that would walk by. So she would get to counsel the sailors and hear their stories of traveling around the world. I think she is a forerunner of the New Thought movement, in that in her writings, one of her famous quotes that she's famous for is, "And all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well." So I keep thinking of Saint Julian, and when I was asked this morning, how am I doing, I answered better. And the reason I'm better is right now in this moment, I'm dealing with the stay-at-home and the social and physical distancing and being alone at home better than I was this last week. I have ups and downs, and I don't know whether you can relate to that. They have ups and downs where sometimes I'm really fine, and then other times I look at the news and go, how much longer does this go on? And it's not that I'm suggesting that we shouldn't be distancing and wearing masks, but this aloneness, this separation, I don't believe is natural for humans. So it's very much a situation of separation. Often my language is the I of separation. And the mask, and again, I'm not criticizing mask wearing at all. I think it really is very helpful in helping prevent spread of disease. But the mask, I'm breathing my own air, and I want to be breathing the breath of life, the breath of God. So at times I have to talk to myself. And unlike Saint Julian, I don't believe I'm saint-like at all at times. I'm just have times when I'm struggling. And I have this little picture of me in this house, in this apartment, secluded. And then I have other images of me bursting forth into the universe, into the universal consciousness. The mind does not need to be trapped, even if the physical body is a little bit more limited. So I'm having these expressions of expansion in consciousness at times. And I'm better when I meditate, when I really do the meditation practice and go into the silence, go into the meditation, go into prayer, then that sense of separation dissolves. Then I'm not stressed, I'm not struggling with what is. In that state of silence and prayer, it really is an expansion into consciousness and a freedom, a great freedom from physical limitations. So if we're looking at the language of duality, me and you, we, they, we're really also looking at some factors of our society and different cultures and different socializations. I was looking at individualism and this importance of being an individual, and I see that that's very paramount in the United States. It really is a culture where we value our individualism. But there are other models, other cultures. There's the idea of the collective or communal. And I certainly believe that our essence, our spiritual nature is unique. I come to believe that there is only one of each of us. There'll only be one unique expression as this physical form with the spiritual expression coming through me. There never was anyone like me before, there never will be. And so in spiritual terms, we are unique. But then I look at the physical level, the physical attachment to being an individual. And then we use this language of comparisons of better and worse, and the language of duality. So individualism, as I say, we've been studying this as part of the white fragility. I do see that that is very much part of the United States of America. It's present in Britain, of course, too. Many indigenous cultures, many of the African cultures, South American cultures, have far more of an expression in their community of the collective or the communal. And then I looked at this individualism in terms of where we live. And as you probably all know, I lived in a spiritual intentional community. I loved that. That was a we of the Findhorn Foundation. And I loved a spiritual intentional community. And yet many people within that still had a place to go back to be by themselves in their own home, in their own small apartment. So in terms of our house, our living accommodations, we've got models of co-housing, we've got models of community, we've got models of living in our own individual units. So now if I explore the collective a little bit more, all of you who know Star Trek probably know the Borg. And the Borg is really an alien race that has the hive communal perspective of a way of living. And one of my favorite people who was rescued from the Borg is 7 of 9. There's no longer that individual identity. It's just being one as part of the whole. And more closer to home, there are different species on the planet that have more of a hive expression of how they live together. I mean, bees are an obvious choice, where there's all the worker bees, the queen bees, but they all work to the benefit of the collective. Ants, that Reverend Tanya was talking about this morning, before we started the service. The ants are a collective. And then there are many species in the animal world, in the world of birds, that work as a cooperative. So the emperor penguins, the males that have to stay behind, as you probably know, they all clump together in a big circle, and the ones in the middle are the warmest. But they then work their way to the outside. So there's a continual movement of the ones that are getting freezing cold on the outside through the winters in Antarctica, moving to the center, getting warmed up, and then moving back out to the outside. When you see cranes in flight that have to fly very, very long distances, the lead bird that's really doing the hardest work in the V formations takes the lead, and then when that bird needs a rest, it falls back and another one comes forward to take the lead. So this is this idea of the collective, the communal, the cooperative. And again, looking at our society, I was contemplating the fact that we still seem to be, right from early on, we seem to be culturalized into this thought that competition is good. Competition versus cooperation versus collaboration. I was probably 4.5 years old in infant school, where someone put a red band around my body over my head, and I was on the red team. And then there was the green team, the blue team, and the yellow team. So we were being divided for the purpose of competition in sports and athletic achievement. And in our own culture now, there's these ideas of a meritocracy, the elite, the most capable, the most able, with a win-lose perspective. Or there's a beautiful story I read, that the Special Olympics, where there were many of the children with Down syndrome, they started the race as we would typically expect to see a race being won. But one child falls down. All the rest of the children go back and help pick that child up. And then hand in hand, they all race to the finish line together. So that was a beautiful expression of cooperation and win-win, where we all win. So sometimes the I is the individualism, and sometimes the we is that we have a win-win situation. I'm going to go further into looking at the we, where it's a genuine we and where it might be a fake we the people. But I'd like to introduce an idea of kinship. And this is from a book, The Tattoos on the Heart, from Gregory Boyle. And he's talking about coming to an idea of kinship, coming to an idea where there is no one left out of our circle. He writes, only kinship, inching ourselves closer to creating a community of kinship, such that God might recognize it. Soon we imagine with God this circle of compassion. Then we imagine no one standing outside that circle, moving ourselves closer to the margins so that the margins themselves will be erased. We stand there with those whose dignity has been denied. We locate ourselves with the poor and the powerless and the voiceless. At the edges, we join the easily despised and the readily left out. We stand with the demonized so that the demonizing will stop. We situate ourselves right next to the disposable so that the day may come when we stop throwing people away. And the prophet Habakkuk writes, the vision still has its time, presses on to fulfillment, and it will not disappoint. And if it delays, we will wait for it. And the it is that vision of kinship, such that God might recognize it. So I'd like to explore the word we. It might seem at superficial value that if we just stopped using I all over the place and started using we, that we might be able to get closer to that language of oneness and including people. But then in British history, and probably in other history, we have the royal we. You may have heard where the royalty use, instead of using I, they use the word we for a single person. So it's I or we that could mean me and God. In 1169, the English king, Henry II, used this God and I to impose this fact that he had the right to rule, the we. Richard I needed to bolster his claim to be the ruler and ruler by divine right. So again, he used the we, the him and God. Apparently this royal we could be used in high office. A monarch, maybe a pope, an earl could use it. But as Britain found out, not Margaret Thatcher. She was a prime minister and she used the royal we and got a lot of criticism because she said, we are now a grandmother. And there was a complete uprising of she wasn't allowed to use the royal we. And thinking about the we that's inclusive, we can say we are all around the world experiencing an aspect of living with the COVID-19 situation. We certainly can't be saying that we all have an equal experience of that. We can use we in a fake news way. I was on a Zoom call and people were being mindful and they were attempting to be very conscious of each other. And someone made the statement of, oh, well, we're all from North America, we're all Americans. And that we was a fake we by accident, because no, there were people from Canada, there were people from other places. So this assumed we, watch out for the fake we, where it's not really being inclusive at all. The Declaration of Independence and the preamble, you know, we are all created equal. As I talked about in the last talk, we can sometimes be concealing the fact that we are not homogeneous, we're not equal, we don't have equity. And then I statements can be good, because I was always taught at Findhorn, especially if there was conflict, that I needed to own my responsibility and say, I am experiencing this, I am feeling, or I feel. And also at Findhorn, there was the concept of the I, in that as I change myself, I also change the world. So there's that inner work from the individual I perspective. I often use we about myself, and I'm not pretending to be royalty. I'm talking to myself a little bit like Myrtle Fillmore would talk to herself. And I'm saying we, the cells of our body. So I am an organism containing, I think, 75 million, trillion, whatever cells. And so I'll say, we, the cells of the body. Going back to that idea of kinship, and the idea where the we doesn't really feel like an inclusive we. Kinship is the goal where we are all included, and there is no one outside of our circle of kinship, from the tattoos of the heart. As I was growing up in my family of origin back in the UK, and my brother too, one of my brothers too, I kept trying to run away, which must have been really scary for my parents. And I kept thinking, not my family. And me and my brother would pray that we were adopted, because we were both struggling in our family of origin at times. And so I was going, not my family. And then at times, I can say, not my country. And it doesn't matter whether I'm talking about America or Britain, I can go into that state of not my country. But then I can take it to another level. I can take it to the level of not my planet. You know, instead of praying that I was adopted, you know, praying that perhaps I was an alien life form that was dropped off on planet Earth. So I can sometimes say, not my planet. And then how can you not laugh at everything I've just been saying in terms of not my family, not my country, not my planet? It's impossible to be outside of creation and the universe of God. And it really brings me back home to my part of being in the divine, in me, through me, as me. And it's impossible to be separate from that perspective. There's a quote from Elaine of Lille, and the quote is, "God is an intelligible sphere whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. That there is no spot where God is not." And looking at the concept of oneness with God, Myrtle Fillmore, she had quite a lot of wisdom. She actually rewrote a little bit of Alfred Tennyson's poem. And in that she says, "Speak to it, for it hears, and spirit with spirit can meet. Closer it is than breathing, and nearer than hands and feet." This oneness with God, she also expressed, "Be still, be still, be still. God in the midst of you is substance. God in the midst of you is love. God in the midst of you is wisdom. Let wisdom fill your thoughts and substance and faith in God." When I was in Wisconsin and Michigan, I was with a lot of people of the Ojibwe peoples for a while. And there is one Ojibwe prayer where it opens, the opening words are, "Closer than I am to myself, one." And another part of the prayer is, "I am you, you are me, we are they are we, in the universal wheel of energy, in the universal harmony." So oneness with each other, oneness with God. I believe that we get to oneness with each other through our oneness with God. Could look at physics and waves and particles and quarks and string theory and say that, again, it's impossible to be outside of our universe. We are all one on the level of physics. And on the level of metaphysics, again, we can look to our spiritual and beyond even words in their usual form to know our oneness with God. I'd like to share a prayer of the cosmos, and that is meditations on the Aramaic words of Jesus. And this is an Aramaic version of the Lord's Prayer. "O Bertha, Father, Mother of the cosmos, focus your light within us, make it useful. Create your reign of unity now. Your one desire then acts with ours, as in all light, so in all forms. Grant what we need each day in bread and insight. Loose the cords of mistakes binding us as we release the strands we hold of others' guilt. Don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back. From you is born all ruling will, the power and the life to do, the song that beautifies all, from age to age you renews. Truly power to these statements. May they be the ground from which all my actions grow. Amen." Charles Fillmore believed that all of our prayers are cumulative, so every prayer we pray builds upon the previous prayers. He says prayer is cumulative. The more we pray, the more we accumulate of that powerful spiritual energy, which transforms invisible ideas into visible things. He also states that prayer is the most highly accelerated mind action known. And then many people, Myrtle and Butterworth, all talk about the power of the silence. And that the silence is entered into for the purpose of putting humankind in touch with divine mind. I experience the silence as oneness, in a sense of a sphere, since Butterworth talks about the center. And this intelligible sphere from Elaine of Lille, where the center is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere. The silence is said to be unity's most fundamental and most advanced teaching. So I would suggest that silence followed by prayer is our most accelerated form of spiritual practice for evolving consciousness. but it's also the place where we can find our oneness and our we language that is inclusive. And looking again further at this concept of oneness and our language of oneness, I'd like to share two more quotes with you. And one of them, if we could have the slide, Ken, that would be great. The slide is from a quote from Ramana Maharshi. And being asked, how should we treat others? The answer is, there are no others. And Rumi, from his poem, A Great Wagon, out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. There, when the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, and even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. Reverend Reiter wrote an article for Unity entitled Namaste. And we know that this means the divine in me honors the divine in you. She says there's three components of this Namaste. It's coming from a place of understanding that we are made in the image and likeness of God. Secondly, it's recognizing that truth in another. And then thirdly, recognizing that truth and acting accordingly, that we recognize the divine in each other and act accordingly. So we are seeing each other as the divine. And in seeing each other as divine, we create that language of oneness because we're one in God. Seeing with the heart, that place where spirit can meet, we're bringing in the we, the language of we, from our spiritual into all of the forms of our expression. Myrtle's words, God in the midst of you is substance, wisdom, faith, and love. Those are words of language of we and oneness. And the recognition of the divine in each of us brings us the freedom to be we in oneness and wholeness of God, beyond language. I have a prayer that's intended to be in the language of oneness, and then we'll move into a period of meditation. Centered in divine love, we recognize the oneness of our divine presence, power, wholeness, and divine wisdom. And we radiate love, peace, and light into this world. Through our consciousness of oneness, we express our Christ nature ever more fully, adding to the light of the world. And as we think, speak, and pray from the language of oneness, it is our reality. And so it is. So Ken, I wondered if you could bring our slide back again. I just love the image of that slide as we begin to go back into our meditation. And I'm going to read a meditation from Ernest Holmes called One with God, and then we'll have some silence. So as you prepare for meditation, you might want to allow your eyes to gently close. Just relax your body and take maybe a deep breath and breathe it out. I live because life lives in me. I move because there is a universal energy activating me. I think because there is a universal mind thinking through me. I exist because the Spirit has seen fit to give me life. God never makes mistakes. That is why I am a temple of the living God. There is a divine spark in everyone. Knowing that I am one with God and recognizing that all people live and move and have their being in that one spirit, which is God. I know that I am one with every person I meet. Knowing that love must be at the root of all reality. I feel a deep affection for everyone I meet, forgiving myself for all mistakes I have ever made, and forgiving all others. I seem to meet people in the simplicity of faith, in the harmony of peace, and in the joy of living. I sincerely believe that there is a divine presence, a law of good that attracts every person and everything to me, a presence that belongs to me and that, flowing through me, reaches out to everything in my life with love, consideration, joy, and gladness. I am learning to salute God in everyone. I meet people naturally, spontaneously, and happily. It is my desire that everyone I meet will be blessed, will feel the warmth and colour of friendship that I have for the whole world. I rest in this blessed assurance that we are all one in God. And knowing that we are all one in God, we prepare to go into the silence, to that personal sanctuary, that chamber, that place we can retreat from external influences, that place of silence, chamber of the Most High, as we gently and for a while move into the silence. As we gently, very gently start to come back from the silence, come back from that communion with God where we're all one, just gently bring yourself back into awareness of this place, this time. I invite Ken to remove the slide as we continue to come back together. And now I'd like to invite you to just place your hands in Namaste at the heart level. And just as you gently open your eyes in Namaste position, just look at all the people on this call if you're able to do so. Just look into each other's eyes, as understanding that each of us is made in the image of God. Seeing and recognizing the divine, the God in each of us. And knowing that, anchoring that in our hearts and minds and physical form, knowing that we are one with each other and one with God, we take that out into the world. And so it is. Our music today, our special music, is Unity of Las Cruces music director Barry Shaw on the piano and soloist Max Contreras. And they are singing You and Me from Victor Victoria. So it'll be just a gentle pace from our meditation into their exquisite interpretation.
present the kind of picture people are glad to see. And we don't care that tomorrow comes with no guarantee. Leave each other for company. And come what may, you and me will stick together year after year. Won't we, my dear? That's why we're you and me. And we don't care that tomorrow comes with no guarantee. We've each other for company. And come what may, you and me will stick together year after year. Won't we, my dear? That's why we're you and me.
Wow, thank you so much, Barry and Max. That was beautiful. I love the whistling. I would love to be able to whistle, but the whole thing was beautiful. Thank you. And now I invite Kay Brilliant to bring us the prayer for faith and announcements.
Welcome to Unity of Las Cruces, where we know that God is good all the time. Please join me in prayer as we affirm our prayer of faith. God is my help in every need. God does my every hunger feed. God dwells within me, guides my way through every moment, night and day. I now am wise, I now am true, patient, kind, and loving too. All things I am, can do and be through Christ, the truth that is in me. God is my health, I can't be sick. God is my strength, unfailing quick. God is my all, I know no fear, since God and love and truth are here. Amen. We have a couple of announcements. I want to remind you that while we are not physically with one another, we are always together under the light of God, that you can send your support, your checks, your gifts, your tithe to Unity of Las Cruces, P.O. Box 1143, that's Las Cruces, New Mexico, 88004. And tithing is a part of our spiritual discipline and our spiritual growth. So let's keep the abundance flowing. That's how it works. We give, that money goes to others with love. We give with love. We send it out in love, and of course then love comes right back to us. And also, in addition, I want to remind you that you can offer a prayer request in any number of ways. Through Unity, Silent Unity, you can call with a prayer request, you can send mail, as we do when we're together and we do the little sheets of paper, we mail that directly to Silent Unity. Or you can submit an online prayer request form, and all of that information is on your email. Or you might remember, this is where all of that information is, and you can do that.
Thank you, Kay. And now Jane McNeil has our prosperity affirmation.
Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and I am grateful.
Thank you, Jane. Our next slide is our weekly tithe, and this week our Unity of Las Cruces is tithing to Unity of New Braunfels. And that's where my mentor, Minister Reverend Gary Kanye is, and we connect on a frequent basis, and he keeps me in line and helps me as I move towards being part of the field ministry program. So I'm grateful for him, and I'm grateful for Unity of New Braunfels. Next we have Jane Ray, and bringing us the affirmation for unity.
The affirmation for unity. Guided by infinite love and wisdom, and with God as our source, we now behold unlimited possibilities as Unity of Las Cruces grows and prospers.
Thank you. And Kay and Virginia Brilliant will bring us the prayer for protection.
Please join us as we affirm the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Amen.
And so it is. Thank you. We now move on to the slide which is introducing our speaker for next week. And our speaker for next week is our very own James Hampton, and he's going to be talking to us about freedom. So I'm looking forward to hearing you speak again, James. Very much looking forward to that. Thank you. We have the ongoing daily word, the WWW, the Welcome the Word on Wednesdays. And so I'd really love to invite anyone who hasn't been on the Wednesday daily word call to please join us. And as I say, it's a very nice time together where we get to see each other, where we get to talk, where we get to share the word and share what's going on in our life, and also pray together. So you're all welcome. Thank you. Another reminder, I have mine already. I wanted to wear it today just to kind of show it off and see how it felt, but I'm saving it for the 26th. So get your Hawaiian shirts or your Hawaiian attire ready for our celebration on the 26th. It's going to be fun. And our message is very much that even as we continue to have to stay at home, even as we continue with all of the restrictions, we do not need to be alone. And I can truly speak to that we don't need to be alone. We can reach out to each other. If you need a contact number, please contact Unity of Las Cruces. We can get you a contact number. We don't have to be alone. We are loved, and we are held both in the love of each other and in the love of God. And we will be together again. We just don't know quite when. So thank you so much for attending our virtual Sunday service celebration. Welcome to stay after the service. and talk a little bit more, say hi to each other. And we will close with our peace song with Barry and Max.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Namaste. Thank you for being here today. You are much loved, much appreciated. Thank you.